Welcome back, fellow jazz bums. Today, I am going to be discussing recycled vinyl and prestige. I've recently acquired a new prestige title that was pressed on recycled vinyl. I wanted to discuss that. Before we get into it, remember to like and subscribe. We also have the Jazz Bums Discord, so I'll link that in the description below. So come and hang out with us there. And we live stream every Friday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. So come and hang out there as well. So with that, I have dealt with recycled vinyl on a couple prestige and new jazz titles, and there isn't too much content on YouTube that goes into it. So I wanted to start that conversation here. One of the sources that I was able to look at to get a little bit more information was London Jazz Collector. So that is a primary source that I'll be citing in this video. I'll link that article in the description as well if anybody's interested. So essentially, I wanted to tell this in a story of how I acquired a new title that was on recycled vinyl. So I am subscribed to the Electronic Recording Company's email, and they sent something out that they're doing a new Kenny Burrell Blue Moods reissue. So let me share my screen and we can start there. Here we go. So this is the ERC shop. This is already sold out. And it's Kenny Burrell, Blue Moods on Prestige. This is 7088. So this is a fairly early title within the 7000 series. And so usually when ERC releases anything, I just like to kind of see what the current price and value is. So the first thing I did when I got this notification was to head over to Discogs to see what the original mono goes for. So this is saying that there's 8 copies available for in the United States. This one that's under, that's $72 isn't really too viable. It's fair and comes with no cover. But when we get into actual decent pressings, we're in the $500 plus range. So definitely a pricey title. So the next thing I usually do is look to see if there's any reissues that look like they would be affordable and good copies to have. So there are a lot of reissues of this in Japan and in the United States. I came across this specific reissue here from '64. It does have a different cover, which Prestige is known to do. They kind of repackage things and put them out a little bit later. So this is Kenny Burrell Blue Moods. You can see the photography is the same, but the treatment of the cover is different. It also has a different updated Prestige logo. It does come on the Fireworks label. Now, this picture here should have told me already that this is recycled vinyl, but I wasn't really looking that closely. I did see it was a Fireworks label, so that is kind of true to the original. It does look a little different though. The original, let's actually go back and take a look. So it actually is just called Kenny Burrell. Blue Moods, I'm assuming is a title, is a track title that they use to provide the title to the updated version. That said, one tell here that I think is really important is in this image, which not all images on Discogs reveal this, you can see the dead wax here. And this is in both pictures you can see. So it's side A and side B. I'm not sure if you're able to zoom in on this. Let me see if I can open this up in a different window. But you can see that there's what potentially looks like little markings within the dead wax. And that's how you're able to identify if something is recycled or not. And this is easier. This is not the most easy thing to identify in person. I've bought recycled vinyl thinking that it wasn't, brought it home, listened to it, realized it was, and then took a deeper look and realized I could have noticed this, but it isn't the easiest thing to discern, for me at least. So anyway, so this picture here kind of looked like it was recycled vinyl. I already put my order in. It was $20, so it wasn't too big of a deal anyway. There's another copy for $125. I advise people not to get this. It's not a terrible sounding record. We'll get into the sonics of this a little bit later. But again, these early pressings, even in the early to mid 60s, can get pricey. So this is the copy that I ordered, and it did come in. So let me show you it here. It's, like VG plus-ish. There's the back. So the jacket looks good. The record itself, put through the ultrasonic, and it's really nice. Another thing, so just looking at the the grooves, there really isn't much scuffing or scratches, so all of that looks good. So this looks like, like a VG plus copy. Now looking at the dead wax, again, it matches what's on Discogs here. The thing to notice also is that this is a little bit different, but here there is a Van Gelder stamp. On the original, there's an RVG stamp. So the metalwork that was used on this reissue was not exactly the same as the first one. That is another flag that I noticed before I bought it. That is something I did notice. I didn't think it was a big deal. I just figured he probably just took another crack at it for whatever reason. Not concerned about that at all. There are stereo copies of this. This was recorded in mono, so you want to avoid the stereo copies, generally speaking, because it was recorded in mono, so the stereo would be rechanneled or reprocessed, and that may not sound the best, but a lot of times those sound pretty decent anyway. So anyway, so that's kind of the history of this, and it came in. I played it, and in terms of sound quality, it is a quiet record. It's Kenny Burrell playing guitar, rhythm section, and then Cecil Payne on baritone, which is a really kind of great lineup. Baritone with guitar is really a great combo, and these players are amazing. So I was really looking forward to this title. It came in. It's listenable. There is a little bit of noise, a little hiss that the recycled vinyl provides. This, if you really crank the stereo, you can certainly hear it. So I would not recommend it. I think, in terms of just listening, putting it on, and then just hanging out around the house, it's okay. I would put it in the middle of the degree that recycled vinyl can impact a recording. So again, I wouldn't recommend this, but it's not the worst sounding thing, and I will listen to it again. If I'm able to upgrade at some point, I will look to do that because it is a great title. So that's kind of where this one stands. And let's keep moving. So I wanted to pull up the article from London Jazz Collector before we go into some other titles I have. So London Jazz Collector does a great job at cataloging and having conversations in his thread of these articles as well. There's a lot of good information. But he just talks about how basically when you think about the history of Prestige, them and Blue Note in the mid to late 50s were really kind of the top labels putting out a lot of really excellent bop records. So the thing to note here is that Bob Weinstock, who ran Prestige, used the Van Gelder studio similar to Alfred Lion and Blue Note. They got some of the same musicians in the studio. One major difference is that Blue Note provide rehearsals. I think Blue Note generally provided 2 days of rehearsals, but don't quote me on that exactly. And where Prestige didn't, they kind of just went in unrehearsed, and then they kind of captured it pretty raw, which is why a lot of those sessions are somewhat, considered jam sessions. I think just for the musicians to come together and decide on what compositions to play and kind of structure things without rehearsal, I think that just lended itself to kind of a good format for them. So, but anyway, both are excellent. Both pressed, both recorded at Rudy's, and then Prestige pressed at Abbey Studios. Okay, and then Blue Note pressed at Plastilite in this kind of mid to late 50s time period. And they both sound really good. Those records are fantastic from both pressing plants. In the early 60s, Bob Weinstock decided to start integrating recycled vinyl. And I don't believe any of the Abbey pressing manufacturing is using recycled vinyl. But he also started to outsource to other pressing plants, and that's where recycled vinyl came into the picture. This starts in 1963, according to the London Jazz Collector, and then continues through the mid-60s. So it could be, and he speaks about how you can have 2 pressings of the same title from the same year, and one of them is affected by hiss, and the other one isn't. I'm not exactly sure what the compositions are. If they're both just using the same vinyl formulation and one just sounds better than the other, I'm not exactly sure, but it's something to consider if you're collecting Prestige and new jazz titles in particular, because from 1963, 64, 65, because it's very possible it's on recycled vinyl. So that's something just to note. So yeah, so London Jazz Collector does a great job at kind of capturing that piece of the history. They go into it, and he has a picture here, which I think is a good illustration of what recycled vinyl looks like. Now, the thing is, this picture makes it look obvious. Like you can easily tell that this is recycled vinyl. This is zoomed in, and with like the naked eye, when I look at, for example, this Kenny Burrell, it's not as easy to discern that it's recycled vinyl. You really have to look at it. And generally, what I do, what I've been doing before this video, I pulled a bunch of prestige out to just look at what kind of pure vinyl looks like, what recycled vinyl looks like. And I have kind of 3 confirmed recycled vinyl pressings, and each of them looks slightly different. So I don't think it's always going to look like this. And with, I think this picture may have potentially changed the contrast to make it a little bit more noticeable what you want to look for. But sometimes it's not as easy to tell. It is, for me, it can be a little challenging. So some of the things you want to consider is what the imprint is. So Prestige also had a budget imprint called Status, which I have a title that we can look at here. The year, so is this around 63, 64? And if there's AB, which indicates Abbey manufacturing in the dead wax. So like those are some things that you can help discern, like, if this is going to have that hiss or not. So let's move on. That's the Kenny Burrell. And again, I think it's listenable, but if you're sitting down doing like that active listening and really focused in on it, there are moments where I would say you probably would get distracted and pulled out of the music because of that. If you're just putting it on and like doing chores around the house, I think it's absolutely fine. It's not terrible. There is a title that I have that I couldn't even listen to in that instance. So this next one is not that. This next one, I'm pretty certain this is recycled vinyl. This is on New Jazz. It's Work of Art by Art Farmer. This is there's 2 recordings on this. I think the first side is recorded at WOR, and the second side is a Hackensack session with great players. This is a really awesome New Jazz title that isn't that expensive. I think people sleep on these Art Farmers. So this one I do highly recommend. And I believe this is on recycled vinyl. And honestly, I couldn't tell. I only was able to tell over the past couple of days when I started going back to my collection. When I got this and played it for the first time, I couldn't believe how good it sounded. This made me feel like, wow, I really need to start buying more of the early New Jazz pressings. That's how fantastic it sounded. So I just want to point that out. But that said, when you look in the dead wax, and when you kind of confirm with London Jazz Collector, New Jazz definitely use recycled vinyl, and a lot of the early ones that are very pricey are using recycled vinyl. So in this case, I would highly recommend this one. My stylus picks up no hiss at all. It sounds great. This also you can feel it's a heavy pressing. This is probably 200 grams. So this is an example where I'm pretty certain they're using recycled vinyl for a New Jazz title. That sounds fantastic. So that is another example in my collection. Okay, and the last thing I wanted to show is this Red in Bluesville. This is an interesting title, and there isn't an exact match on Discogs because there's so many different things going on with this. So just looking at the cover itself, it isn't glossy, but it looks like an early pressing. And then they just put the Status sticker on the cover here. So it is, it was sold as Status. The back looks the exact same as the original backing. You can see up here, this is where they have the Prestige stereo. So if this was a stereo pressing, they would pull it down to indicate that. This is the mono pressing on Status. This is a fairly pricey record for early. It's not crazy, but like easily $100. I would think. I haven't looked it up recently, but a pretty pricey record. And this is non-deep groove on the Fireworks label with the original hand-etched RVG. There is no Abbey Studio or Abbey Manufacturing mark in there. And this is terrible sounding. Not only is there hiss, all of the kind of highs are clipped, so you get distortion on top of the hiss, and it really is just unlistenable. And I I want to offload it, but honestly, I feel like I can't charge anybody for it because of how it sounds. So I'm kind of like stuck with it. But I think it's a good example of what status can sound like. So after buying this, I've seen other very desirable prestige and new jazz titles reissued on status, and I just, even if the wax looks clean, I just don't buy it because it if it that's how poorly this sounds. It's just not worth having in any way, because it's just, you can't enjoy the listen. It's just too disruptive. So that's the case here. So I wanted to show one recycled vinyl that really is absolutely terrible, and not worth having. I wanted to show another one where this thing sounds fantastic, and I highly recommend it. Everybody should go get it. It's a wonderful couple of sessions with Art Farmer. And then this one's like in the middle, where it's not so bad, but I wouldn't recommend it because I know how people, are with the sonic quality of the records. For me, I think it's okay. It'll be a placeholder copy. It's good enough that I will revisit it. But yeah, so that's kind of what I wanted to kind of show and just kind of start a conversation around recycled vinyl. I know I focused on Prestige and New Jazz and Status and all those Bob Weinstock imprints, but are there any others? I'm sure there are. I know that there's polystyrene pressings. That's another budget alternative to pure vinyl. So that it can be found on Transition. That can be found on Roost, and maybe some others. So let me know what you think. Do you avoid these? Are you aware of these? Was this kind of a useful overview for you as you kind of think and are digging out in the wild for records? I really just wanted to kind of talk through this. This was on my radar for the past week since I picked it up, since I got that Kenny Burrell Blue Moods in. So I just wanted to capture it here in a video and provide another data point out there for people who are collecting prestige. But again, let me know if you've experienced this, what you think about it, the variety of impact it can have on a pressing, if you avoid these, if you were unaware of these, anything. So again, thanks for sticking around. Appreciate it, and I'll see you next time.